Hey, what's up, investors? Juan Pablo here from 100% Finance at 100%finance.com. So today, it's a day in the life of an asset manager. What's an asset manager? It's a person who's managing their assets. Typically, a person like myself who's a real estate investor, I like to outsource property management to a property management company, one that's reputable, who acts with speed, and another one that has checklists, processes, and teams in place to make sure that these properties are being occupied with happy tenants. All right, so it's all about the QC, baby. That's quality control. No, I'm not talking about QC, the music scene and so forth, because there's a big popping music scene in Atlanta. I'm talking about the original QC, the QA, quality control and quality assurance, because property management is integral to the success of your buy and hold strategy as an investor. All right, so without further ado, we want to meet a few members of my team, look at a few properties that are distressed, properties that are turned over, and provide you with a lot of tips on how you can be an effective asset manager. All right, first thing I want to do, guys, is introduce one of our lead property managers, Jacinta. Round of applause.
Hey guys.
So she's been doing a great job just managing our properties. So right now we're at a property in Brownsville. It's somewhat of a, what would you say, D+,
a D area.
C minus area. And what's the relevance of that?
A lot of crime in this area. The condition of the building, just what's up?
Yeah, so from a property management perspective, sometimes you may have some challenging areas, but it's not to say that you cannot stabilize an area. From my personal experience, that had to happen. Remember the property on Lovett?
On Lovett Way, yeah.
We had some issues.
Bring that one up.
We had some issues.
The property was leaning.
But from a tenant's perspective, it was pretty difficult.
Yeah, it was. But we ended up getting past Section 8 inspection.
Yeah, so everything could be overcame, right? As long as you're just diligent and following through the process and having the right team in place. So for this particular property, we turned over the unit. So Jacinta, what does that mean, turn over?
Basically getting the unit move-in ready and to pass Section 8 inspection. We dump the unit, we get everything out, we paint the unit, we replace the carpet, we make sure it's up to code. We're putting in smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, checking the windows, the exterior of the property, all of that is included in turnover.
Yeah, so that's important to keep the property up to code, primarily because the majority of the tenants...
And because of Section 8.
Yeah, for safety reasons, of course, up to code, but also for Section 8. So being that it's a DEC area, we want to make sure that we adhere to their policies,
yes.
Section 8 policies, right? So speaking of Section 8, turnover a unit, that's important. Reason being, from a property management perspective, your main goal is to keep those units occupied as long as possible with good paying tenants.
Correct.
That are satisfied, correct?
Correct.
So the longer a unit stays vacant, what happens?
We don't get no money. I don't get paid.
You don't get paid from a property management perspective, and from an investor's perspective, like me being an investor, I don't get paid either.
Right.
Right? So everybody wants to make money, and of course the tenant wants to move in.
They want to move in. Bills still have to be paid though.
Right. So the tenants want to move in fast. The property manager wants her money or his money, as well as the property owner wants his or her money. So it's important to fill these vacant units, to turn over these vacant units as quickly as possible. But it's really predicated upon the effectiveness of getting the property repaired and up to code via Section 8 standards. So speaking of Section 8 standards, from an outside perspective, the exterior, what are some of the things that Section 8 looks for? A property inspector with Section 8.
Walking up to the property, this will be the first thing they will probably fail. It's a tripping hazard, especially if they have young children and are not paying attention running down the sidewalk. They look at the bricks to see if anything needs pointed, because of course, when it rains, water seeps through the bricks, can go inside the unit and cause a lot of damage. They're also going to be looking at the gutters. They want to make sure the gutters are not packed with leaves, make sure they're cleaned out. They'll look, if they can see the chimney, they'll look up there to see if it needs to be pointed. They're looking for broken windows on the outside of the building. That's really it for the exterior.
So it's important.
I'm sorry, and of course landscaping. They'll definitely fail it for landscaping.
And it's important to know their criteria, because if you don't adhere to it, what will they do?
They won't start your Section 8 contract.
They'll fail
the unit. You have to do all the repairs on the list and in order for them to pass it.
Yeah, so there's many reasons as to why Section 8 will fail the unit based upon the exterior, right? Now, let me ask you, so if the Section 8 inspector fails the unit, what typically happens?
He'll email us his punch list. He'll give us about 30 days to complete it, and then he'll come back to re-inspect.
So it's important to understand the criteria for the Section 8 inspections, right? Because if you don't understand the criteria, as you mentioned, that's 30 days. They have to come back out and re-inspect it. That's 30 days of lost revenue simply because you didn't dot your I's and cross your T's. You didn't have a checklist systems from a property management and maintenance perspective, all right? So that's a lot just from the exterior. Let's take a look at the interior.
Okay.
This is one of the units that you turned over, right?
Yeah, this is one of the units we just got moving.
All right, and this is you, the lighting guy. This is, this is a YouTube channel, bro. We're not having like the effective light guy and all that good stuff. But just bear with us. So now we're in the interior, right? This is the bedroom, right? So just short and sweet, what are some of the things that we do typically in the bedroom?
Of course, we make sure all the windows work, make sure they open, close, and lock properly. We paint it, replace the carpet, change the light bulbs. That's about it.
Fast,
Yeah.
short and sweet. So,
Oh, I'm sorry. Smoke detector. One has to be placed in every room.
So let's just take
or
a
on
look
every
right
floor.
here. So a smoke detector on every floor, carbon monoxide, right? And you said the windows, say again? What do we
They
do
need
with those?
to open, close, and lock properly.
And what about the carpet?
We replace the carpet.
Replace the carpet and also paint,
Yep.
right? Because you had some Section 8 work orders get failed simply because, not just because the repairs weren't done adequately, it just wasn't clean,
Right.
correct? Everything worked, but the fact that it looked dirty, they failed it. All right, so let's go into the kitchen real quick, guys. Take a look here. This is a one bedroom, correct?
Yes. One bedroom, one bathroom.
This is one bedroom. So again, this is Section 8. So with Section 8, guys, we like to call it don't put lipstick on a pig, pretty much. Just make sure that thing is pretty to the point that it passes the Section 8 inspections. All right, you don't need to make a Taj Mahal out of it. So very quick about the kitchen. What are some of the things you normally do in the kitchen?
Again, the windows, we have to make sure they work, make sure the stove works, clean the appliances. The radiator in here, we had to make sure it worked. We had to close in the radiator. This thing was just an open space. So they had to build this here in the front, and they replaced the kitchen floor as well.
Great. How long did it take to turn over this whole unit, this one bedroom?
It took them about 4 days.
4 days, okay. And how much typically?
With material and labor, it was maybe about $4,000.
So $3,500, so 4 days, $3,500, $4,000 to turn over this one bedroom apartment to make it approved for Section 8.
For Section 8, and I think we get $650.
$650 a month for rent from Section 8. Okay, so just to give you some insight, guys, right? In regard to property management, is integral in your buy and hold strategy. If you're in that mindset of, hey, I want to be financially free and independent, I want to be a full-time real estate investor, you gotta have a great property management team on your side, assisting you with turning over these units. Now, there's one thing I definitely want to share with you, and you can jump in as well. Don't expect that as soon as you close, that every unit is going to be cash flowing day one of closing. Of course, we get rent prorations and so forth by closing. However, sometimes when you purchase a property, the tenants that you're inheriting may be non-payers or slow payers, no payers, right?
Often.
And if that's the case, there's no stayers. You gotta kick them out.
Right.
You gotta evict them, right? Now, if that's the case, do they typically leave the property in pristine condition?
No.
How do they normally leave it?
They leave everything in here. The carpets are always damaged. We often have to do drywall repairs. So it's a lot.
Yeah, so
turnovers.
Right. So it's depending on your market, right? The type of property you're investing in. If you're investing in a D as in David or C as in Charlie area, right? Don't get me wrong, you can get nice cash flow. However, with the type of tenant you might receive, if it's a Section 8 tenant, when they leave the property, you may have to do some extensive repairs. Now, she did a full turnover in 4 days. That's pretty quick, right? But it does take time because you're working with Section 8, AKA you're working with the government who has policies, procedures, paperwork you have to fill out. And oftentimes, just a long wait time to get the property inspector out here, right?
Right.
And then if you miss one small thing, such as the window didn't open properly,
They'll fail the unit.
They'll fail the unit. You got to come back within 30 days. So of course, from a property management perspective, we do our best to make sure the quality is in place the first time, so we won't have to waste time getting that property inspector back out to the property a second time. But I just want to let you know, guys, oftentimes you do have to wait in regard to the turnover. Okay. It's just depending on what type of property you're buying, if it's an A, B, C, or D area. All right, so just FYI, but with the right property management in place, they will cut that time in half. All right, so without further ado, guys, we showed you a unit that has been turned over. So we want to show you some more units that have not yet been turned over, so you can see the kind of like a before and after type of deal. All right?
Okay.
Thanks. So in a previous unit, right, that was a distressed asset, that was vacant. So of course for property management, you want to get that property fixed up and occupied as quickly as possible. However, there's some other particulars you need to know about property management, especially tenants who are occupying the unit, which is great, 2 thumbs up, but it's 2 thumbs down that tenants occupying the unit is not paying, right? Which is the case for this particular unit we're in, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So if you can kind of give us a story in regard to what happened with the tenant and the process that it took to.
Okay. It was an inherited resident. We got her. She wasn't paying any rent. We had to move forward legally. We won the eviction at the magistrate's office, and then we had to take it down to the family and civil division because the resident filed an appeal. So it is.
Yes, that's
stuck.
That's fine. We're gonna keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling, right? We're not actors, right? But that's what really happens, right? Sometimes, from a property management perspective, we get stuck with a bad tenant.
Right.
When you buy a property and you're inherited tenant, as she mentioned a few moments ago, you really don't know the tenant's payment history, because sometimes the seller was trying to offload a problem, not just a property, but a problem. In this case, it could be a problem tenant. But our job is to make sure that once we find out that tenant is a no payer or slow payer, they're a no stayer. They got to get out as quickly as possible. So you mentioned a little bit about the eviction process. So if you can just give us short and sweet, what's like the steps you take to evict a tenant?
Well, if we don't receive their rent monies by the 3rd, we post a 10-day notice on the 4th. After that 10-day notice expires on the 11th, we will file for the eviction at the magistrate's office. And then they will schedule a hearing about 2 weeks after the filing date. And then we go to the magistrate's office, and 8 times out of 10 we'll win the eviction. But because Pennsylvania is a tenant state, these residents are able to file appeals out here, which makes the eviction process a little harder.
Right, so there is some work involved, right, in regard to turning over a unit or turning over a tenant, right? So with this particular unit, it's somewhat distressed, but you would consider it like a
I think she left
distress.
it in a decent distress. She actually left it in a good condition compared to other residents who's been evicted. She left 1 couch in here, 1 table. She's been here, I think, maybe 10 years, maybe longer. She was the longest resident in this building. So of course we need to replace the carpet. But yes, overall it's not in a bad condition. It probably will take about $2,000 to $3,000 to flip the unit.
Yeah, and that's what we want to share with you guys in regard to 100% finance, right? The real, the good, the bad, the ugly, the numbers, the whole 9 yards, right? As a property owner myself, not every story is a sweet story, right? Sometimes you do get tenants who don't pay. Sometimes you do get tenants who destroy your property. But there's ways around that. That's why you want to have reserves for your property, and that's why you also want to, in regard to destroying a property, you want to have vandalism insurance. If a tenant does want to be spiteful and vandalize your property, no worries, you have insurance for that. But again, always have adequate reserves for vacancies and maintenance to help you, as well as having a good property management team who know what they're doing, especially when it comes to evictions.